They built a garage, first of all, so we lived in a garage in the summertime while they worked on the house.
Wait, all three of you? Or even your mom too?
No, my mother never did.
She was back
She
in
stayed here
Dearborn.
in Dearborn, and the house belonged to my grandparents.
Oh.
My mother didn't own the house, so we lived with my grandparents' home
In the one in Dearborn?
in Dearborn.
Okay, and then at some point, when you were about 6,
About 6, my grandmother decided they were gonna move out to the farm.
and this grandma and grandpa were Irma's parents.
Irma's parents.
And what were their names?
The grandfather was a step-grandfather. My
Oh.
grandmother had married.
Okay.
Yeah, her husband died. So Myers, their name was Myers. So he worked in Dearborn in a rouge plant and would drive out every weekend up to the farm to work on it. So we lived out there in a house that was partially built. We now moved into the house. It wasn't totally built, but so he's still working on the house.
Wow.
So my grandma and I lived in the house
All by yourself,
by ourselves
all year long,
all year long.
and he would just come up.
On weekends, and work that way. You can imagine that?
So what was it like for you to go to school there?
Well, I was the only child, closest kid to play with was probably 3-4 miles away. So I was pretty much by myself,
How did you get to school?
walk.
A long, long,
Wasn't that far
long
away.
way.
Yeah,
Oh.
dirt road, walk. Winter time, whatever, you'd walk to school. You'd survive,
But there were no kids to walk with even.
you know. The fact that, how did she survive?
Your
Because we had animals to feed. We had chickens, we had cows.
So you mean financially, how did she survive, or how much work she had to do by herself?
She was doing a man's job.
Ah.
She and I, later on, I got a little older, we'd plant a lot of corn, because corn was feeding the chickens and the cattle. And she and I would be out in the fields hoeing corn by hand,
Wow.
chopping off the weeds, do it out. She was doing that, the work, so it killed her. So she had health problems and eventually, high blood pressure primarily.
Oh.
Understand, Patty, she was from the old school. Physical labor was, something she was used to, but you just think about it. At this point, she was in her early 50s.
And working all day long.
Yep. And
On the
she had
farm.
And of course, there's no man, so he'd come out on weekends and do what he could do for the Saturday and Sunday.
And he would stay in the Dearborn house where your mother was.
Yes, he did her what my mother was.
Which was his house in Dearborn.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So she was like a single mom, and she was taking care of her grandson.
Yeah,
Your grandma was.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to call my mother Irma. Didn't call her mother. Call her Irma, because my mother was my grandmother,
Wow.
for all I knew.
So do you remember those years that you were too young to have to help, and she was doing everything?
Well, that was it. Didn't know anything, didn't think about it really.
No.
It was just work had to be done. I had chores to do, and she did what she could do.
And you had homework to do.
Yeah, I don't know how that ever happened, but well, I remember I enjoyed reading, and certain class I did well, spelling and English, and a lot of those things I enjoyed those subjects. So as I said, so I was there, and finally, I'm thinking 41, I think she passed away in 41.
So you were
We moved-
only 15.
We finally moved back into town.
Oh.
Her health got so bad she couldn't live out there. I couldn't take care of her. I was there with her for a few years when she was very ill. I'd help take care of her, do what I had to do.
Wow.
And finally we decided it was too much. So she and I moved back into town,
To the Dearborn house.
the urban house. And at this point I was ready to go to junior high school. So I was 12, 13. So I went
So your grandma and grandpa, or your step grandpa,
Yep.
never lived at the farm full time with her before she died.
No, you're right. They never lived out there.
Wow.
So her health finally gave up, so their dream went right down the drain. When she passed away, at this point, he expected me to move out there with him
Oh.
when I got out of high school, got out of service, went to service, of course, at this point. So I came back from service, he really expected me to move out there and live with him, and we'd farm together. But the 40-acre farm was nothing, because you figure there's not enough land to really generate any kind of income.
Oh,
So his plan was, and we had usually 200-300 chickens.
wow.
Leghorn chickens would sell eggs. He'd bring eggs into town on weekends. He'd bring in
Wow.
vegetables from the farm. That was the plan, between the orchard and the chickens and whatever income they had, this was gonna be their retirement policy. Of course, then she died. Well, that ended that dream. So pretty soon he decided to sell the farm, when I didn't go back with him. That's when he turned around, he sold the farm and decided to go to California. Go west, young man, go west. Of course, he wasn't a young man anymore. You know, he was in his 60s, middle, late 60s. So he
Wow.
quit his job. He had 20-some years of seniority. Union hadn't really come in yet. So he didn't have any kind of pension retirement. He just put the land up for sale and sold the farm.
Wow. So after him being, so then he let your mom have the house, I assume, in Dearborn?
My mother bought the house from him.
Oh.
They bought it. When he moved to California, sold the farm, sold the house. And so he moved out to California by himself.
Did you ever see him again?
I'm sorry?
Did you ever see him again?
Yeah, I took my bride out to see him. And I think
That was 1955, right?
57. We
57?
were married in 57.
No.
Yeah,
Brad was born in 57.
59. Oh, 57.
I think you were
Oh,
married
I-
in June of 54.
Oh, we married, I'm sorry, we married in 54.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know how I know that? Because my parents were married in February of 55.
Well, we took a lease car, we drove out the lease car out to California in 55 for him to meet Marty.
Wow, so that was the first time you'd seen him?
Yeah. Yeah. And the next time was when he died. My mother and I flew out for the funeral.
Oh.
Yeah, he died out there.
What a strange, I can't imagine what it was like for you as a teenager. And you spent all that time alone with your mom, with your grandma out on the farm,
Yep.
and then you guys come in, move back to Dearborn. And, but she dies not too long after, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember her barely able to walk. And
Wow.
we had a back bedroom where she stayed, grandfather. The house had 3 bedrooms. Mine was in the front and my mother's in the middle and then grandma's in the back. Yeah, she had a hard time, but they didn't really know how to handle high blood pressure. They went ahead and cut back on some of her diet to lose weight. And I don't know what pills they had for her, but you know, they didn't really treat the blood pressure like they do today.
Yeah,
Wasn't controlled. She was in her 50s when she died. She was not very old.
wow.
Yeah, she was always, I got pictures downstairs in the manual, our old family photo book.
Well, if you were born in what year was your mom born, do you remember?
That's a good question. We're not sure. We
Oh.
never knew her age.
Oh.
She died, she was 89 when she died. I'm not sure when she was born.
Well, but what I was thinking is that if your grandma died so young, and you were only 15,
Yeah.
and yet that's your grandma, so it seemed like your grandma must have had your mom very young, and your mom must have had you very young.
By this time, of course, I was calling my mother.
Oh,
Yeah, by that time, you know, I knew what the relationship was, what it was. But yeah, my grandparents, they come from the old country, they worked hard. My grandmother didn't speak English very well,
oh no?
no,
So when it was just the two of you for 6 years,
yeah.
did you not know how to communicate with her?
Oh, yeah, I spoke Hungarian,
Oh, I didn't know that.
oh, yeah. I was raised in Hungarian, I spoke Hungarian. We spoke Hungarian at home because she did not speak English that well.
So-
She spoke broken English,
Do you still remember it?
parts of it.
Oh,
I have-
okay.
I have fragments.
I didn't realize
The
that you
trip,
still,
the trip we went out of Amsterdam to Hungary, the river cruise we took,
yeah.
the people on board the ship were, a lot of them were Hungarian. And all of a sudden I began remembering, I couldn't converse in a long-term while. There were certain idioms that I could remember that came out of my mouth as one of the biggest, nicest compliments I got was one of the storekeepers in Budapest. I mentioned to her the story. I said I was raised Hungarian. I spoke to her in some Hungarian things. She said, you speak very well. You speak the words very well without an accent.
Oh. So here you were on the farm?
The Hungarian language is very rapid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's very rapid.
You're living out on a farm all by yourself with your grandmother speaking Hungarian.
It's a different life, isn't it?
Yeah, and no kids.
That explains some of my idiosyncrasies, and I do have some.
No, it
I do
doesn't.
have- I really miss not having a father, because my grandfather was as close to anyone. He taught me all my pleasures in working with tools and all that stuff, because he was very handy with all that stuff.
So you liked it when he came home on the weekends?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he was the man of my life.
and he was your step-grandpa?
Yeah.
But it didn't matter.
He had never adopted me, per se.
So you'd call grandma mom,
Yeah.
and you called him dad?
Let's see, what did I call him? No, I didn't call him Dad. What did I call him? Not Papa. George was first name. I have no idea. I remember what I called him.
So when he would come out on the weekends and he'd be working really hard too and
Oh, sure.
trying to,
He had to do some of the stuff that she couldn't do. We
Uh-huh.
couldn't do. Well, I remember one time, my grandmother evidently, his health was failing her and she was having trouble. And so they hired man to come in and help her on the farm. And I guess he made a pass at her.
uh-huh.
And when my grandfather came back in, my grandmother told me. There was a very short fight.
Oh dear.
The hired man was gone.
You remember seeing it? You remember seeing it or hearing it?
I saw it, it was down in the basement, I can remember the picture, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh,
My grandfather was probably 5'7", 5'8" at the most, but he was a tough bird. He was a tough bird,
and
yeah.
he let that guy know you can't.
Yeah, that was into that, yeah. Yeah, my grandfather could do anything. We had an old tractor. We had horses, but I don't remember, yeah, I remember driving the horses on a field, plowing with the horses, I can remember doing it.
So did you find the password for his email?
Mm-mm. Voicemail.
From,
His phone has a voicemail account and there's an indication that there's voicemail waiting in it, but we don't know how to get to it.